Look, I opened this jar of rotten baby food, and well, a butterfly came out.
I like to take sandpaper and cooking oil, and
Nice.
yeah, I like to just scrub it up, man. It just really gets all the cracks and crevices really well, man. And
Well, you,
yeah, it makes my face nice and smooth afterwards. Just really gets in there.
welcome to the Comedians and Elevators podcast. I've got my guest, John Paul Motherway. John Paul, say hi, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm John Paul Motherway. I started getting into acting back in like 2006. One of my first big gigs ever was I was an extra in Pirates of the Caribbean. Did that. I did do stand up comedy one time. I went to like this amateur thing, and it was like amateur night, so I did stand up comedy there. I didn't really go any further with the stand up comedy, and just off and on, I've just been doing like side gigs here and there for acting and television, things like that.
Very
I was,
cool. I like
yeah,
I like hearing about the Pirates of the Caribbean. And were you a pirate or a different character?
I was just the guy that would go around just punching people for no reason to make them look beat up for the movie.
Okay.
No, I was one of the I was one of the East India Trading Company soldiers. I was
Uh-huh.
the bad guy.
So, but those are the cooler ones in that movie. So
Yeah,
that's
but the
that's
bad part was is being filmed in the Bahamas, and the suits were made out of wool, and there
oh.
was like three layers of clothing, so that was a fun ordeal.
Yeah, the part of history that didn't make sense, like it didn't actually
Yeah,
happen like that, right?
yeah, it was fun though because we actually trained like a real military, like off
Uh-huh.
camera. Yeah, and Peter
Oh,
Twist was the coordinator for that.
very cool, very cool. Well, you ready to get into the podcast?
Let's do this.
Listen, to my regular listeners, I know you don't like when at the beginning of these conversations I ask you to subscribe. None of us like it. I don't like saying it. I don't like it being in here. But it's frustrating. You know what else is frustrating? It's also frustrating when I look in the back end of the YouTube channel and I see the 56% of you that watch frequently haven't yet subscribed. And I know this because I see it in the comments section. You say things like, I didn't know I didn't subscribe. And that's actually what fuels the show. Basically, it's like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask all the time, because it enables us to build and build and build. And we're going for the long term here. Hit the subscribe button and we'll continue to build this show for you. That's my promise. Thank you to all you guys that do subscribe. It means the world to me. All right. So the whole point is to compare and contrast the comic versus the comedian. So I define the comic as any person telling funny jokes versus the comedian who's a funny person telling any jokes. So would you agree that you start as a comic and evolve into a comedian?
I guess you could say that.
Well, you could disagree. So let's actually throw with the first question. So the role of persona in comedy. How much of the comedian's voice is a character versus their real self?
How much is the comedian's voice of the character versus himself?
Hmm.
Um, that's funny. That question kind of threw me off. I have to think about that one for a second. Um, I guess it just depends because I know the things with like actors and all that. They some of them like put on a certain character, and that certain character is what sells. It's what people want.
Hmm.
So you might have times to where I mean, you'll get a certain camera personnel, but off camera they're a totally different person.
Okay. So does authenticity matter or is illusion part of the magic?
Honestly, man, in this industry, you know what I mean? Like even though you're on TV, as an actor or a comedian, you're a salesman.
Right.
And whatever you putting out there, I mean, whatever sells, that's what you become. So sometimes it can be authentic, but other times it might be fabricated.
Okay. So punching up versus punching down. So where do comics versus comedians stand on this? But let me put it in some historical context. Did a jealous medieval prince become the first comedian by killing the court jester?
Mm, he was either became a comedian or a very hated person because he killed the entertainment.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
So would that be punching up or punching down?
Well, I know like when you say punching up, punching down, I'm interpreting is, I mean, if you're punching up, what I mean, you're stepping over your competition to, to take over. And if you're
Okay.
punching down, what I mean, you're pretty much just eliminating the entertainment.
So if you're punching up and you're stepping over the competition, isn't it actually punching down because you're stepping on top of them?
Well, I don't know, man. I know when I played Contra, I know like I would enter up, down, left, right, A, B, select, start, man, and that was a pretty good code.
Ah, there it is. I like it.
I could do some punching right there, man.
So would you say the audience's agreement is a form of permission or alignment?
Oh, I think it's definitely a form of permission, man, because you know what I mean. At the end of the day, who's the one paying those ticket sales, man, to pay those actors?
Okay.
You know what I
Okay.
mean? Like pretty much, man, as an entertainer, you're working for the audience. You know what I mean? So you definitely want their approval,
You know,
or you're gonna be like a lot of these Disney movies lately, man, and get canceled.
hmm. Now
Disney's
that
been going through a lot of they've been going through a lot of cancellations lately.
so since you brought it up, it's a good question. So why is that? Is that possibly because of the life cycle of a project where they initiated it so far in the past that by the time it's realized society has changed?
No, you know what it is, man, is the thing with acting and movies and comedy, what I mean, people want to be entertained, right? The
Hmm.
last thing people want is your political views on how you view something in a project. You know what I
Right.
mean? That's like putting peanut butter on pizza, man. It just doesn't work. You know what I mean? You're supposed to be entertaining people, man, not pushing your views if you agree with gender identification or non-gender identification and subjects such of that matter. And lately, that's been going on with Disney, man. They've been trying to just put stuff in, man, and totally take things away from the original way that it was made.
No,
And
I totally agree. Have you seen peanut butter on pizza before? Is that like a topping at like the do-it-yourself pizza places that exist?
I think I've seen it one time. I don't know if I ever seen anybody eat it.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you're bored, you just rub peanut butter on your face and act like you're a mud monster. You know what I mean? Like, oh, look out, it's the Jif monster.
I'm gonna have to use. I'm sorry, I'm snorting. That's a keeper
You
right there.
never know, man. Yeah, Jif versus Pizza Man. You don't know.
Hmm. Very cool. Okay, so cultural translation of comedy. How do jokes that work in one country bomb in another?
Oh, definitely communication issues with that one. Because
Hmm.
the thing is, if you speak English and you deliver something in English that's really funny, you go to a foreign country where people don't really speak English, they're definitely not going to understand it.
Okay.
Plus, too, you know what I mean? The thing with all languages, there's different meanings to a word or different meanings to a phrase. And if you're not catching on what they're talking about, the joke's just going to go right by your head.
That is true. So would you say that comics are more universal while comedians are more culturally specific?
Um, so you say comics, so when you say comics and comedians, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, is there really a difference between the two?
So when I started doing stand-up comedy, I didn't know anything. And over time, the more experienced and professionals started making this differentiation. And that's why I'm making a podcast because it finally dawned on me that, you know what, there is a difference. It's super subtle and most people don't know. And even when I say it, you still don't know because it's that
Yeah.
subtle. It's that subtle. And there's a huge crossover because, like, the idea that you start as a comic and you evolve into a comedian, even though you may agree without understanding it, you still have no idea what that means. So, right? So
Oh,
yeah, you see what I'm saying? Because
yeah.
I'm,
No, I'm sorry.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No, it's hard with the delay, but the idea that the comic just tells jokes and the comedian, he's a funny person, which did start probably by just telling jokes. Something changed, transformed. It went from I'm talking about politics to I'm talking about me. So what happened? Why did this happen? And that's the whole point, the comic versus the comedian.
Gotcha. So pretty much in a nutshell, it's a known comic versus a unknown comic. It's just the
Well,
known it's just the known comic who's a comedian makes a lot more money than the up and coming comic, pretty much.
Definitely, definitely, I would agree that that's a thing. But even how about both? So if they're both, if it's an unknown comic and an unknown comedian, two different people, versus a known comic and a known comedian, another two different people. Now we have four different people. How are they different? This is the crux of the podcast: is what are
You
these
say
four different
four
people?
different people or four different people?
There's so I'm gonna have to draw a map out for this, but yeah, there's four. So let's put in some more context. So crowd work versus crafted work. All right. So
Uh-huh.
if comics riff, such as crowd work, like influencers on TikTok, in the comments section in particular, and comedians perform like in reaction videos, like crafted work, where's the sweet spot?
The sweet spot is, I believe, probably the reaction that the comic will show on his face to whatever he's watching. Because like smiling and laughing and things like that, it becomes contagious. You
Hmm.
ever like just look at somebody and they start laughing? You know what I mean? What do you want to do? You want to start laughing. You're gonna
I,
look at them and see them laughing and then get angry, like, hey, what the hell are you laughing for? You know what I mean?
in some places that would happen, but you don't, that's not a funny place to be. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's basically the idea.
Or if you spill a
Exactly.
drink on somebody and start laughing, then in that situation, they're not gonna be laughing. It's not gonna be
Ah,
happening. Like you just
but
spilled a drink on me, buddy. Oh, that's great.
so I could see places where that might work. It all deals with outdoors versus indoors. So and how sticky it is. So that is a sweet spot. So what happens when a comic leans too much into crowd work or when a comedian gets heckled?
When comic leans too much into crowd work,
Yes.
he might fall over. He ended up leaning a little bit too far.
That's one thing
Um,
that could add. They use the mic stand as a crutch.
yeah, if he's just having a bad night, it's all over after that.
Beady, 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 beady. So what about when a
Well,
comedian gets heckled?
community itself, that's a great thing because
Okay.
what it does is it opens up a extra outlet in the show because here's the thing when a comedian gets heckled, right, that gives the comedian ammunition to fire back. And so now the next thing you know, you got something new entertainment going on. You got the comedian going at it with the heckler, and it adds a little bit of sweet spot to the show right there because it wasn't part of the original plan. And so when things like that happen, people love it because it's anything improv or off script. You know what I mean? Those things are usually enjoyable for the most part.
I would agree. All right. So, advertising and self promotion. Who advertises themselves more? The comic, the comedian, or the magician? You know that place where you're not conscious and you're not sleeping either? That's your power bill to the electric company. Right here. I want us to be here with free energy, where the Wardenclyffe Tower meets the Eiffel Tower. But that's not where we are. We are here, where you've got the utility and you've got residential solar. Between these two, we know which one saves you money. This is where we can go in the meantime. But this is where I want us to be now, and this can be done now. So let me deputize you to represent DOSE, Department of Solar Efficiency, and let's get on the podcast and get the message out today. See you soon.
Uh, what about the candlestick maker,
That's right. We
or,
could throw
or
in a
the or
bunch of
the but
stuff.
or the butcher or the baker?
That's
Three
exactly
men
my
walk into
point.
a bar. I don't
Uh-huh.
know.
Uh,
Let's
I mean, they're
say,
gonna they're gonna find the sweet spot for sure.
yeah, yeah. I would have to maybe say, I have to say maybe the comic advertise themselves more because they're trying to really get their foot their they're trying to really get their footprint out there, and
Hmm.
so they're going to advertise all they can, man, to make a great name for themselves to build up their repertoire. I would say.
Okay, but would could you see self promotion could be seen as selling out, or is it necessary for survival?
Honestly, man, any type of promotion is great. You know what I mean? And you know, you got to do what you got to do sometimes. You know what I mean? If it feels like selling out, then so be it, man. But you know what I mean? If it helps, go for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
All
Sell
right.
the heck out of yourself. Why not, man? Sign up with Coca-Cola and Pepsi, man, and sell out for all the products in the world, man.
Cross selling, right? Aren't they
Yeah.
competitors? So who's punching up on who? Pepsi versus Coke.
Uh, I don't know, man. They're pretty equal. Like they're
Okay.
punching each other.
Okay. They
Like, I
got
think they're punching
siblings.
straight. Yeah,
Ah,
like sometimes Coke will land a right hook, man, but Pepsi will come back with an uppercut, man. You have like some Dragon Ball Z action going on.
exactly. And okay, so censorship and offense. So does a comic avoid offense while a comedian courts it to prove a point, like a magician?
You know, that question would really go with like what day and age we're living in.
Hmm.
Back in the day, you know what I mean, about 20, 30 years ago, offensive jokes and things like that were more easier. It was more easier to get away with stuff like that. But
Hmm.
now these days, man, where people get offended easily and, sometimes you could be like sued in court.
Yep.
It's very, a lot of comics, man, are swaying away from offensive jokes, man, because they really just don't want the backlash of it.
Yeah.
Um, but sometimes, man, you got comedians out there, man, like Dave Chappelle, like Bill Burr, man. Those guys, they don't care. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna say stuff, and but the thing is, though, if it becomes funny, then people love it. Even though some people are offended, but the bigger crowds might love it more because it's funny. So it's really a double edged sword, man. You know what I mean? You're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. It just
That's
depends,
right.
man. You know?
So then who survives better in the cancel culture environment, the comic, comedian, or magician?
Definitely the magician. Definitely the magician, man, because he's gonna be. People still want to see magic. They might be offended, but they want to see a rabbit get pulled out of the hat.
Right. All right. Even if it's not a rabbit, you're like, here's a rabbit. You're like, that's something else.
Yeah. Here's something that's going to offend you. So
Yeah, good.
what it is
XYZ.
is well, what it is, man, is they go to the comic, get offended, and then they got to go to the magician to feel better about being offended by the comic. See?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the way to go. And then the comedian's at the front door saying, here's your tickets to the next show. So, timing and delivery, is it a science or an art?
it's
Do
definitely an art.
comics, it's an art. So, do comics rely more on structure and comedians more on rhythm and emotion?
Actually, man, I think comics and comedians are going to be in unison on that one.
Okay.
Timing is a big thing for comics and comedians, man. Because that's the thing, you know what I mean? It's like when you're telling a joke, right? But when the crowd starts laughing, you don't want to go into your next joke yet. You want to pause to allow the audience to laugh a little bit, so that you know what I mean. When you do go into what you're going to say next, you know what I mean. The laughing is not overshadowing your talking.
Okay. Okay. I'll go with that. So, speaking of that, so laughter versus applause. So, are comics chasing laughs and comedians chasing applause breaks that validate the message?
Oh, I believe they're both being chased. Because
Okay.
as a comedian, you know what I mean. You want to put on a great show, and if people are applauding you and laughing at your jokes, man, that's a double whammy right there.
All right.
That's a
All right.
yeah,
All right.
that's a showstopper.
Very important question. Comedy as commentary. When does a comedian cross into being a philosopher or a preacher?
What a stupid question.
When his career sucks.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
when he's not funny anymore, man, he just starts a podcast and just goes from there, man.
no more stand up?
No more, man. The thing is,
So,
though, honestly, though, you don't really know too many comedians that don't stop being funny.
uh-huh.
Um,
But they do
None that
become
I know of.
philosophers or preachers, right? I mean, Dave Chappelle comes to mind. Are you saying he's at the end?
No, know of. I mean, he's always been pretty funny.
Right, right. But do you think he's becoming kind of a preacher philosopher?
Um, Without seeing anything recent, I can't really
Ah,
give a good. Yeah, I haven't seen any of his stuff in a few years, so I
okay.
can't really give an honest answer on that one without looking at what he's done lately.
No problem. I was just quoting the Netflix special in the last 5 years or so. He's done about one a year, so there's
Uh
some.
oh.
Okay,
Yeah.
you gotta check it out then. Okay,
Yeah.
so
I think on Saturday Night Live.
oh, that's a while ago now. Oh, he did the
Yeah.
recent one. All right. So, is it good, or does this dilute the humor?
As far as
Being a preacher or philosopher.
so yeah, it will dilute the humor. If a comedian's on stage and they really start getting away from the jokes and they're starting to push an agenda of some sort, then
Mhm.
that just gets annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
that's going
right.
to definitely dilute the humor. I can tell you that.
All right. Comedy and vulnerability. I would argue that comics hide behind their jokes and comedians expose themselves. If you agree, which one is braver?
Um, I would say the ones that expose themselves are braver.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
But so do you agree that comics expose them or comedians expose themselves and comics hide behind their jokes?
I think it depends on I think it depends on the person. It depends on the comic themselves. Because, like I said, you got some really brave comics out there, brave comedians out there. But then you got ones that just try to stick closer to the being safe and not going too far.
All right. All right. So we've got a tradition on the Comedians and Elevators podcast where a guest, the current guest, poses a question for the next guest. So the guest previous to you, John Paul, was Felix Miliones. And his
Uh huh.
question was Felix Miliones has a question for you, but he doesn't know you yet. But here's the question: how do you wash your face properly?
I like to take sandpaper and cooking oil, and
Nice.
yeah, I like to just scrub it up, man. It just really gets all the cracks and crevices really well, man. And
Well, you,
yeah, it makes my face nice and smooth afterwards. Just really gets in there.
so is that what you did before, or do you had a different technique for this?
Different technique, man, was hydrofluoric acid, dude. I would just pour acid on there, and it just melted all the bacteria right off my face, along with my face.
Nice.
My face went with it,
Yep.
so I had to like have a new face like put on. So this is my new face.
Not
You didn't want
bad.
to see. You didn't want to see what I looked like before.
That's not it's not a bad. I mean, you already got the hair growing, so it's looking pretty authentic. I got to give you
Yeah,
that.
I used to be Middle Eastern, but now I look white. So
Yeah. Very cool. That's the I hope that was the transformation you were going for. That's the key.
yeah, I used to sound like this, but now I do not.
Nice. Okay, last question. Legacy. Who gets remembered? Will the comics Tight Five survive time, or will the comedian's cultural point of view be more timeless?
No, definitely the comic, man.
Okay.
Definitely the comic. Like pretty much like that's the thing, man. You know what I mean? When you're really funny, people remember those funny jokes.
Yeah.
And those are gonna go down in time. Like if you look at like Eddie Murphy Raw or Eddie Murphy Delirious, right? You know what I mean? If you ever watch that, you're gonna remember that probably the whole rest of your life. You know what I mean? Like
Very.
you may not remember what Eddie Murphy's views were on something like 2 months ago, but you'll definitely remember like when he was at his funniest.
I agree with you on that one. So, John Paul, where can everybody find you online?
Probably YouTube. My other social media accounts, I kind of shut those down. But you can definitely
Okay.
check me out on YouTube.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. And for everybody else, please like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.
Have fun.